Now, I try to do this off camera as much as possible, but I will point out my snack of choice is my Havarti cheese with dill and my Cabernet Sauvignon in a recycled jar. So that's how you know I'm classy. And that out of the way, I'm going to move on to another book report, shall we say, of Chameleo by Robert Guffey. Now, this is one I wish I could remember exactly how I heard about this or found out about this. I want to say it was in a discussion thread on Facebook where someone mentioned this, and I thought, wow, that sounds pretty crazy. I got to get that. So, get it, I did. And this is one relatively recently. I want to say this was published like 2014 or so, 2015. And what this is it is Chameleo, a strange but true story of invisible spies, heroin addiction, and homeland security. So what happens in this, and this dovetails nicely with a lot of the things like Walter Bowert's Operation Mind Control and books I've got like My Labs that I've covered. This is the account of this gentleman, Robert Guffey, had a friend who was a drug addict, and in the course of his drug parties, accidentally let this guy come through his apartment with a bunch of stolen Department of Defense items, such as a computer, a Department of Defense computer, and stolen night vision goggles and some other contraband, which led to the NCIS coming out to investigate him and look into this. And it starts this insane tale of some department within the government, and he believes it's like naval intelligence or somebody like that, that just launches an all-out war against this guy and his friends using some pretty advanced technology like cloaking technology and stuff. And by that I mean, like, this guy claims to have seen people come through his apartment that were only visible sometimes, like almost like ghosts. And it's in some of the accounts of what he talks about are crazy. But it's presented in a pretty believable way. I mean, even though the guy did admit to being a heroin addict, they basically come through, and this is a classic like gang stalking type case of and my only guess from reading this would be that because he got caught up in this mess with the Department of Defense, that somebody decided, well, this guy's fair game to experiment with whatever we want to. It's okay to screw with this dude's head because he's already kind of nuts anyway. So this is the whole account of his friend going on the run from the government, where eventually they intimidate him to the point where he flees town. It is a crazy tale, and it's told in a humorous style, so it's not as dark as some of the accounts that I've read, but really fascinating, because in the course of this, he actually runs down a guy who has been instrumental in developing cloaking hardware for soldiers, like that soldiers could use, like individual soldiers, to be invisible. And so he actually runs that down and interviews that guy as part of this book. And that in and of itself is fascinating, to know that there's actually something out there like that. And this book explores a lot of that kind of psychological warfare technology. So anyway, fascinating book. And I think this is one of those books that dovetails nicely with like the My Labs book and the Walter Bowert's Operation Mind Control, in dealing with advanced forms of criminal harassment by government agencies, of using high technology, like making people hear voices and all kinds of things. So if you're into that, if you're into researching mind control devices, mind control technology, and that sort of thing, and the practical use thereof, this is definitely a fascinating account to read. And this is another one of those that I have dog-eared liberally through here. So lots of good information in here, lots of good interviews, like the one with the guy who allegedly invented that. I do find it interesting right at the beginning. He fires off that he is a third-degree Mason, and he's real quick to point that out. And I'm still, I mean, later on he goes to, I believe he runs into another guy that's a Mason, but he's real adamant to point that out to you. And I don't know exactly what the significance is, why that was so important to include in the story, but there it is. So anyway, Chameleo, a strange but true story of invisible spies, heroin addiction, and homeland security by Robert Guffey. So definitely an interesting read. Even if nothing else, this is a wild ride and just a fun read. I read this on summer vacation a few years ago, and I was not disappointed. So there you go, Chameleo.